Hello. All right, I am good. I'm recording. You should be able to hear me and see me. My light above me is super bright, but that's okay. This is just for our students. All right, so this is a video regarding the stuff that we learned this week in class. Specifically, this video is being recorded for Kylie, but I may send it to all of you guys since I'm recording it anyway. All right, so I'm going to just flip through my little notebook here and talk about the things that we talked about in class. All right, first thing is you guys have speeches that will be due on December 16th, which will be the last day of class before Christmas break. Your speech is to be an informative speech. We'll talk more about the speech itself next week, but be thinking about what kind of informative speech you would like to give. Informative can be a demonstrative, like how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It could be a biography. It could be just straight information. Anything that is informing us, right? Giving us information would be a informative speech. So you want to make sure that you plan a topic and then start writing your outline. And then rehearse your speech, because we only have 50 minutes and there's 9 of you in the class, which means that at tops you guys have 5 minutes to do speeches. So I believe I'm going to make this a 3 to 5 minute speech, because, well, try to aim around the 4-minute mark, but you'll have 3 to 5 minutes, okay? But strive for 4 minutes. If you go over or under, it will be part of your grade. Will be reduced for that, okay? So make sure that you're rehearsing it so that you actually do the right amount of time. All right, so some of the things that we're going to focus on today, first section is the power of words. I'm doing more in this session than I normally would have at one time because we got a little behind because of the video stuff and the COVID and all of that crazy stuff. And then when I was sick and we couldn't teach anything for those 2 weeks, so I'll go a little bit fast, but please show me grace and mercy. The power of words. We talked about the different things that we can say or different ways we could use our voice that will tell somebody what we're trying to say, even if the words we're saying aren't what we're saying. So for instance, if I say I love you, just like that, it just sounds like information. You're giving me information. If I say, oh my goodness, I love you, that sounds like I truly mean it. But if I say, I love you, then I may not mean it, right? Or maybe I'm mad at the moment. And in all of those cases, I use both verbal and nonverbal communication. And we'll talk about all of those in this lesson and next lesson. So some of the things that we focused on with the power of words is vocal variety. So we talked about tone, the tone of your voice. As teenagers, you guys have probably heard your parents say, it's not what you said, it's how you said it. And that is your tone. And in fact, your parents probably have a tone. I have a tone. My own daughter, Alyssa, has pointed it out to me that I have a tone when I talk to her sometimes. And she's right. When I get frustrated, I do get a tone. I am working towards not having that tone, as we all should, because what we don't say sometimes speaks louder than what we do say because of these other verbal and nonverbal communication that we use. Inflection, the way that we inflect our words could really tell somebody one way or the other. You know, like I love you, or I love you, right? Like depending on which word you really focus on there could say a lot about what you're trying to say to that person. And I don't know why I used I love you. This seems like a weird thing to be using when I'm talking to my students, but it was just the first thing that came to my mind. Jesus said we're supposed to love everyone, right? Love our neighbors, love our enemies, love God. All right, the next thing is enunciation. I used in class the example of Ross from Friends because he enunciates everything that he says very strategically. That was very hard. I was trying to be like Ross. I did not do great, but you get the point. Enunciation or over or under enunciating something could actually help get your point across both ways. Your pace, the flow of your speed. How fast or how slow you say something matters. So if you start talking really fast about something, sometimes you're excited and it makes people listen more because they're like, whoa, why is she so excited? Why is she talking so fast? But you don't want to talk that fast through your whole speech because then you sound like, well, you know, like when you hit fast forward on a old cassette tape and it's like, that's what it sounds like. Okay, I probably need to do some bloopers for this because I'm tired, I'm delirious. I have coffee at 9 o'clock at night. Okay, back to the point. Slowing and speaking slowly also could, time out, Barb, pause. I'm just sitting this whole video raw. You guys are getting it all. If you talk slowly, it can also get attention. Use that strategy strategically. I'm trying to purposely do these things while I teach it because that's how I did in class. The volume of what you say matters because when you whisper, people lean in, they want to hear more, they get closer. But when you shout, they pay attention also. So using different volume in your speech is very helpful as well. And then we talked about the power of a pause. It is better to pause than to use filler words. And I'm embarrassed to know how many filler words I've probably used. If anyone's watching this and you're being the Wizard of Oz, you probably counted all my ahs and ums and so's. So is usually my crutch word, but I feel like I've been saying more than normal. Anywho, that's technically a filler word. You want to use pauses instead of filler words because the filler words make you seem unprepared or uneducated, where pauses make you look distinguished and well spoken and maybe even well educated. So for instance, you say something, you make a point, and then you pause. And then you start again and you make another point and then you pause. Pastor Ron does this very effectively. There I go. This is the worst video I've ever made. You guys would never believe I do this for a living, would you? All right, I'm gonna post this on Facebook. There's also another good point for pausing. When you pause, it allows you time to think of your next point if you forgot it, or to make sure that you're going in the right direction, or to redirect yourself if you got off. If you're like me, sometimes you start talking about one thing and then you go off on a rabbit trail and then you're like, where am I at? A pause will help get you back to where you were going. All right. Next, the written word. We talked about how the written word is very different than speaking to someone in person or even on the telephone. Because if we read a text message or an email or even something on social media, it's really hard to distinguish what tone the person's using or what volume, unless they use all capitals, then we think they're shouting, but sometimes the elderly do that anyway. It's hard to know what pace they're speaking at, where their heart really is. So knowing that for when you receive the written word, the example I used in class was that no matter what somebody says to you in a written word, whether directly or indirectly to you, you should always give them the benefit of the doubt and give them the same grace that God has given to you. Because we can definitely misunderstand and miscommunicate things in the written word, much more than we could if we were face-to-face or even on the telephone. And the other thing, the other point I made with that is when you are sending a message to somebody in a written word, make sure to keep that in mind, that there might be things that you say and mean them one way, and the person who receives it believes that you meant it another way. And people don't always reach out and say, did you mean this way? Many times they just assume what they thought it meant. And then that's how some fights and strifes come about. So I recommend giving people the benefit of the doubt when they text you or write you, and just believe that their heart is good. And then when you write to other people, if you don't know how they will take it, it's okay to actually say, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, or I want you to know that my intention with this message is this, or I know that this is a hard message to read, but I want you to know I've sent it with love, or something like that. It's okay to be honest, especially if it might be misunderstood anyway. And then we went into listening and evaluations. So under the listening category, the big thing we talked about was listening versus hearing. There's such a big difference. And in fact, I'm just saying this right now. I'm posting this live, even though I did not plan to. I plan to only make this private to my students, my speech students. But you know what? I'm having so much fun with this video, so I'm posting it live. So I want to just say, if you're watching this video right now, I want you to put a comment below of what you think the difference between listening and hearing is. Be as descriptive or as brief as you'd like. And because I'm going to ask you to put it in the comments, I'm not going to tell you the answer here, but my speech students, when you watch this, you and I will have a conversation next week. We'll follow up with class, and then I will share with the rest of the group in comments after you guys comment below what your thoughts are. Tell me your version, you know, because I don't know that there's actually a right or wrong answer here, but the way I described it in class, I think was very helpful. Tell me the way you perceive hearing versus listening. What's the difference? What are the similarities? What are the differences? And what is better? All right, moving on. We talked about evaluations. As you guys know, in speech class, you are to evaluate each other's speeches. Your first speech, where you guys got to introduce yourself, you only evaluated one person. But your speeches going forward, you will be evaluating every person in the class. And so I have a standard of what you guys will be using to evaluate, and I'm going to give you some tips on how to give the best and most effective evaluation feedback that can help the speaker get better. Because we don't want to just bash the speaker of all the things they did wrong, but we also don't want to just tell them how great they are and not tell them anything that they can improve on. So there's a nice formula that I actually learned through Toastmasters, and I'll share, and of course some other programs and experience I've learned as well, but the main process and thought I got through Toastmasters, which is a nonprofit organization for speaking and leadership. You could Google toastmasters.org if you've not heard of it and you're interested. All right, so evaluations. Did the person have a focus point? Are you able to say in 1 or 2 words what this person's speech was about? What was the main idea? Were they prepared? How do you know? Were they using notes? Did they say a lot of ums? Did they pause a lot? How prepared were they, and how did it show? These are the things you should be thinking about while you're evaluating this person. What was their content like? Was it valuable? Did it match the assignment for your informative speech? Was it informative, or was it something different? And speaking of which, you guys, your informative speech that is due on December 16th will be your last speech of obviously this term, but next term you guys have, like, I think it is 6 or 7 speeches. You're basically doing a speech like every 2 or 3 classes next semester. So this is to prep you guys for your speeches going forward. So pay close attention to this week and next week. Their vocabulary. Was the vocabulary jargon that you didn't understand? Was it meant for the audience that is there? So for instance, if I'm talking to a group of mothers, I could use examples of how painful childbirth is without having to describe it in detail, and they understand. Or I can actually use analogies that have to do with childbirth or something like that, and it makes sense for that audience. If I gave that same speech to kindergartners, that'd be very confusing and probably disturbing for everybody. So know who your audience is, and then as an evaluator, did it feel like the speaker knew their audience, and were they appealing to their audience with their vocabulary and their content? Did the speaker speak clearly? Could you understand the words they were saying? Were they over or under enunciating or inflecting? Was their volume too high or too low? You know, keeping all those vocal varieties in mind while you're on the speaking clearly section. How was their posture? I gave an example in class that even if you are nervous up there, you should be up on that stage as if you own this place. Every time you step on stage, you are the focal point. You are in charge. You are the one we're listening to. So no matter how nervous you are, you get up there and you be confident. You put your shoulders back, your head up, right? Be confident. Of course, unless your speech is meant for you to, for whatever reason, but otherwise you are to be confident when you are the focal point of attention. And I gave an example, and the kids even tried it in class. I'm sorry, I don't mean to call you guys kids. It's teenagers I'm working with. Obviously, I'm an old lady, so the students, I will call them the students, I had them do the Wonder Woman pose in class, right? Because if you put your hands either as fists or, you know, hold your waist on your hips and you put your feet waist width apart, and I can't do it, I can't stand up right now because you'll only see my midsection and that would be weird. But you do this and you do the Wonder Woman pose, you've seen the posters, that actually boosts your confidence like that. So I encourage everybody to do that right before their speech. In fact, on the informative speech, I'm going to ask you guys to do it right in front of us so that you can practice it. The next thing is eye contact. Have they made, has the speaker made eye contact with one or a few or most of the people in the room? Or do they look like they're just glazing over everybody's heads, being fearful? Or are they looking at the ground? Or are they looking up? Or are they looking at notes? How is their eye contact? Pay attention to that, because that does show, it portrays part of the message. That's nonverbal communication that tells you what somebody is focused on. Their time limit. For these particular speeches, you guys are doing about 3 to 5 minutes because of time restraints. How did they do? Did they get to the 3-minute mark and then just sit down and they were done? Did they get to the 5-minute mark and have to hurry up and rush through, or they didn't get to finish? Or was it perfect timing where they didn't get rushed off the stage, they didn't sit down abruptly, it felt prepared, that they fit that into about the 4-minute mark? And comprehension. As part of the audience, were you able to comprehend their message? Not just the words they were saying, but the message that they were trying to portray. Going back to that focus point. Now that you know what the focus point is, you've heard everything they had to say, you watched their nonverbal and verbal communication, were you able to comprehend it in a way that you now know what their mission was and that they've accomplished it? So going back to the example of how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Let's say that that was somebody's speech and you found out, okay, well, that's their focal point, making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. The comprehension would be, do they want you to go make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich now? Like, what is it that and do you think you can actually go make one if you've never seen this speech before, right? Or if you've never made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and then you saw this 4-minute speech, do you feel like you would be able to go make this sandwich on your own for the first time ever? Obviously, I know you guys have made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches because you're teenagers. Just an example. All right, moving forward, we went next on to the nonverbal communication, and we talked about facial expressions. So you guys know I love just saying things that teenagers do all the time, because one of my teenagers is in our class. And so as teenagers, many of you have rolled your eyes, right, at your parents. My kid actually does more than roll her eyes. So like I used to just like do just an eye roll. Mine does like this, like her, as she rolls her eyes, her beautiful eyelashes flutter as she's doing it. And it's really hard to get mad at that because it's so adorable. But at the same time, it's like, I know the intent that was behind it. And so the way that you move your hands or your head or your body, you know, gestures, eye contact, we talked about that already. You want to make sure that you're making real eye contact with people. Don't just look at everybody's eyes as quick as you can. Make eye contact, speak for a couple seconds, make eye contact with the next person, continue to speak, and you don't have to constantly keep changing people through your whole speech. Just make sure that you're not focused on one specific person the whole time. And as part of the audience, if someone makes eye contact with you, you should smile to encourage them. We also talked about touch. Sometimes it's a strange thing if a speaker comes and touches you. Well, where's my camera? Here's my camera. My hand looks weird that close up. If the speaker comes and touches you, right? But sometimes that does make sense to do. Obviously, in today's world, sometimes touch is weird, but it's just an example of nonverbal communication. Space, right? If somebody's leaning in or away from you, it gives two different messages. If you and I are talking and I'm leaned in like this, you probably think that I'm interested in what you're saying, and I probably am. But if we're talking and I'm sitting back like this, more relaxed, it doesn't have to mean that I don't care, but it might mean that I don't care. And even more, if my arms are crossed or I have a grin on my face. I tried really hard just now to look mean. I don't know if that worked or not. Okay, so those are some examples there. Let me move on. I have just a little bit more. You guys, we're doing so great. Moving forward or backwards, have you ever talked to someone and they just keep getting closer to you while you're standing up? You're standing there and you take 2 steps backwards, and then they take 2 steps forward, and then you take 2 steps backwards, and they take 2 steps forward, and you're kind of like, get out of my bubble. So that's a sign also if somebody is interested or uninterested, if they're moving in or back. But you're also telling people that too. If somebody's moving in closer to you and you keep backing up, you're telling them that you're not interested, even though your mouth isn't saying that, your body is saying that. Their voice. So remember the voice variety, vocal variety technically can also be nonverbal. Right? So you could be saying, like you could be crying or screaming or screeching or making weird sounds, or even doing like things like this. And I guess that'd be part of a gesture, but, or boom, right? Or I don't know, I'm just making stuff up as I go along. Your posture, right? I talked about the arms crossed, the Wonder Woman. All of this nonverbal stuff tells people what our mouth isn't saying. So keep that in mind when you are speaking to someone, whether you're speaking one-on-one, in a small group, or up on stage like Wonder Woman. What your nonverbal communication, they say, speaks louder than what you do say. So for instance, one of the things I used to say, I think I got it from my mom. I'm sorry, I know I like froze because I was having a flashback. No, I'm just playing. So she used to say, gosh, now I can't remember. Oh, your actions speak louder than your words. So like when somebody says, I love you so much, but then they like punch you, right? Like, how much do you love the person? I don't know why I keep using the love example. This whole video could be a blooper. I'm just going to title it Blooper, Barbara's Best Bloopers. Okay, moving on. All right, let's see. This is the worst. I don't even remember what I'm doing. Okay, that was it anyway. We started talking about virtual meetings, but I'm going to re-go over all the virtual meeting stuff next week anyway, so I'm not going to record it here. All right, now I have the giggles, so let's just stop the video. All right, I hope this was helpful, even though I was tired and delirious and not on my A game today. All right, God bless you. Goodbye.